Hello everyone and welcome to another video. It's a beautiful sunny day in Amsterdam and before I go out and enjoy the weather, I thought I'd make a short video about M42 lenses and a small issue you might be familiar with if you enjoy using them, and a fix that should enable you to use them at their full potential. So M42 lenses, if you're unfamiliar with them, are an old, obsolete mount. It's a screw mount. As you can see, there's a thread, and to mount the lens onto the body, you simply, you have to screw it on, which, as you can see, is definitely more time consuming than modern mounts, which is why probably it's obsolete. However, the good thing about these lenses, by the way, these lenses were very much used on Pentax cameras and a bunch of other brands. The good thing about these lenses is that they can be used on modern cameras with adapters, and you can find them for really cheap, meaning secondhand shops, flea markets, online, anywhere where you have some old box full of old gear, you'll probably find a bunch of these, and they'll probably be going quite cheap unless there's some rare lens. The good thing is also that you can get some pretty good glass. So as you can see, well, this is a f2.8 28 millimeters. I found this one at my grandfather's house, and since I use Pentax, I was really happy. I had an adapter ring already, so yeah, so I was really looking forward to use it. However, as soon as I started using it, I noticed a problem, which was I had no control of the aperture on my lens, which kind of limited my shooting to f2.8. So I had to look. Well, initially I thought it might be broken or something, and then looking into some resources online, I found out what the reason was, and the reason is pretty simple. As you can see, some of these lenses have an auto manual switch. So when you're on manual mode, the aperture ring, as you can see, you have full control over the aperture ring. When you go into auto mode, this pin engages the aperture from the camera body, and as you can see, twisting the ring doesn't really do anything. The good thing is a lot of these lenses have this auto manual switch, so when you have these lenses, if you have one of these, there's really no issue. You can use it with no problem, so we can move it away. However, other lenses don't have this feature. For example, this Osawa lens I just showed you has no control. So as you can see, it's a very compact lens, by the way, almost too compact in the sense that the two moving element, there's no fixed element on the lens. So you have a front focusing ring, and the back half of the lens is actually the aperture ring. So as you can see, if you don't have something fixed to hold on to, the whole lens actually kind of rotates. The advantage of this lens, though, is that it's incredibly compact. So let's get it on. So here you can see what I mean. You see there's no fixed part of the lens. There's nothing like to grip onto apart from the camera. The issue here, though, is that there's no auto manual control. So the pin is always engaged by the camera. The pin is always active, and this means I couldn't control I couldn't see, have a preview, let's say, of what my aperture settings were on my lens. Luckily, there's a pretty easy fix for this. It'll change for sure, depending on what lens you're using, what brand the lens is, how it's built. But the basics will be the same for all of these lenses. And basically what you need to do is disable the pin. So as you can see here, hopefully, the pin isn't sticking out anymore, so it's been disabled and blocked. And this is what you need to do if you want to get control of your aperture. So let's open the lens a little and see how I did that on this lens. And hopefully this will give you some ideas, or at least give you the general gist of what you need to do if you want to fix it on your lens. So first things first, I already opened this lens a bunch of times, and this morning I had some big trouble getting these screws undone. So first tip I can give is don't screw these in too tight. These lenses are not going to be withstanding huge forces, so once they're securely in place, don't overdo it if you want to have access to your lens some other time. So I should also mention that depending on the lens build, some of these, in some cases, this fix might actually damage the condition of the lens. So if you're holding them for collector's value, or as, I don't know, as an investment, I guess, or if you're really into the whole mint condition hardware, you might want to take a good hard look before you attempt it, because as I had happen in this case, the lens is not, well, I mean, it can be fixed, of course, but it was kind of an invasive procedure, let's just put it that way. So once you open the back side of the lens, you'll see here's your aperture mechanism. So when you see, held here, it's a fairly simple, there's not a lot to do, so let's get into it. As you can see here, here's the pin. This pin would normally be kept down by this clamp, I guess. And this clamp was originally kept in. Okay, hello everyone, and sorry again for the brief interruption, but my SD card was full, so I had to change it. But now with enough gigabytes, I'm definitely sure we'll be able to come to an end of this, to finish this video. So as I was saying, you have a pin, you have a clamp here, and the clamp in this specific lens, the concept is the same through all lenses, through all these lenses, but the build might vary. However, in this case you had a spring running from here, it was glued in onto the screw here, and then it was fixed around the clamp here, and so the spring kept kept the clamp in tension, pushing down on the pin, and in this way they achieved this. So you know, this pin extruding and coming back in place every time you release pressure from it. So this basically enabled the automatic, let's say, aperture control, right? There you go. But not the manual. So what we want to do is disable the functionality of the pin. And to do this, the easiest way is to place an obstacle between the pin and the bottom of the lens, so that even when pressure is applied, the pin stays in place and does not come out through the bottom of the lens. In this case, yeah, I had to remove the spring. The spring actually broke while I was trying to get across it, get through it to remove the pin. But, you know, that really depends on the kind of lens. Some are easier to manipulate, some aren't. And I guess that's something you're going to have to see depending on what lens you have. I had two options to remove the clamp. One was to unscrew these two screws, but I didn't really have a small enough screwdriver. So I just bent the base, you see, just enough to get the pin out. Once you get the pin out, you take a little something that can work as an obstacle. So in this case, I'll actually change what I had used, because I used this little plastic piece, but it was too wide, so the pin slipped through. So I had to put some paper to yeah, to make the fit tighter. But the easiest thing you can use is this. You cut away a sufficient amount of the inside of any big pen. That's usually going to be enough to hold the pin in place. It's large enough not to go through the base of the lens, and tight enough not to let the head of the pin run through it. So let's just cut off a sufficient length. Let's see, little plastic pieces here. Yeah, so okay. There we go, this should be enough, hopefully. And if not, we'll cut another piece. And I also noticed, in my experience, it helps if you just squish it a little, just to make it even tighter, and that'll help. Okay, lost it. Here. That'll help the pin be secure and definitely not go through the... Okay, so there we go. As you can see, the obstacle has been placed. So now this should function as a good stopper. And once we put the pin in place, you can see the clamp isn't able to push it through anymore. So even supposing there was a spring, the spring wouldn't be strong enough to, you know, clamp it down so hard that the pin would go through. And by disabling the pin from coming through the bottom of the lens, you're basically enabling full manual functionality. So it's as easy as that. If you have a big pen, if you have a small screwdriver, and your lens isn't too complex, I mean, is simple enough that you can unscrew the back of it fairly easily, you should be able to do this fix in about 5 minutes. So there you go. Once it's in, I bend the clamp back in place just to keep rattling and noise at a minimum. We want as few loose ends inside the lens as possible. And off we go. Then it's time to put it back in place. Let me just yeah. Okay, so that's it. This is as hard as this fix is, and believe me, if you have a lot of M42 lenses, this might really help you get the best use out of them. And sorry, yeah, putting screws back in place while looking through a screen is not the easiest thing to do. But once we got the first one down, and always remember again, don't tighten these too hard. And okay, so thank you for watching. If you have if you try this out, if you try this method out, if you already tried it, if you have, you know, some anecdotes, some different tips, please let me know in the comments. That would be useful for me and anyone watching. If you have any suggestions on future videos or things you'd like to see, again, please let me know, and I'll do my best to approach whatever topic you suggest. And yeah, as usual, thank you for watching. If you want, subscribe. I would really appreciate that. Follow me on my website, on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook. Check out what I'm doing. And, you know, any support is always very welcome. Sorry, but this last screw, as usual, is the troublemaker. Okay, so lens is back in place. Full manual control of your aperture. So yeah, if you want to gain full control of your aperture on M42 lenses, this is the way to go. Thanks for watching again, and have a great day, everyone.